Hey guys, so this is the part of the program where the action starts, where we're actually going to start making some moves to try to make our roster better. Now, given a roster like this, I think there are two different mentalities people would take. The first mentality is somebody would say, we're not good enough to contend now. I'm just going to trade a couple of veterans or prospects, play the IFA market and draft in the draft, and hopefully I'm in a place to contend next year. The other mentality is I'm just going to try to fill the holes on the roster the best I can and maybe upgrade somebody if I have the chance and just see how it plays out. But I don't like either of those. I don't want to win 65 games. I don't want to win 80 games. I want to win 90 plus. And that's going to involve a lot of wheeling and dealing and, tearing things down and building them back up. And basically, the goal here is just to take advantage of the fact that people are willing to make moves to unload certain players or acquire players to fill certain holes and collect a small premium. I'm basically providing liquidity on the trade market where, I don't really have many specific needs, or I have a lot of specific needs, and I also don't really have any players that I can't afford to lose. Like, we have Ortiz and Cromer and Bautista, who are all good offensive players, but I can afford to lose them and then replace them if I'm getting enough value. So basically, my objective here is to, increase the overall value of my franchise by giving people the players they want or taking on the players they don't want. And we have a few basic goals here. One is to unload Tony Burgess. That absolutely has to happen. Trade Renee Cromer for value. Trade Michael McKinley for whatever I can get. And then everything else is up in the air. Personally, I don't really want to dip too heavily into my pitching staff because I sort of like the core there. And I don't really feel like trying to trade for pitching. Trading for pitching is really hard. And there's not enough talent in the free agent market for me to build a pitching staff from scratch. So I'm mostly going to be dealing my position player prospects. So first order of business, we unloaded McKinley. Yay! We got a fucking stud reliever for AAA at least, who hopefully never have to use the major league level. I would have preferred to get somebody who I would have use for at the major league level, but after floating a few feelers out there wasn't that much interest. So I just basically unloaded some guy who I didn't need, who was getting paid superfluously. Now, in the Renee Cromer sweepstakes, there was a fair level of interest there. And in case you forgot who he is, you can see decent hitter, crafty base stealer. Yeah. I don't really want him though for $10 million a year with my $14 million training budget. So instead, I converted him to Bernie Cordero, who was the 24th pick in the draft last year, which is fine. It's a bit of control issues. Hopefully, he can get that above 60. Hopefully, around 65, and maybe have 75, 80 splits. This is a rare left-handed pitcher with better versus righty than versus lefty splits. And that's really useful because left-handed pitchers face about 80% right-handed batters. So that's sort of a little hidden bonus there that he's going to be facing a lot of guys who are facing his good side. So that's pretty nice. And also, the really important thing about having a good farm system is it's sort of prospects are the best trade assets because most people who are looking to unload the major league players that I'm going to want to acquire are looking to unload them because they're not good enough to contend now, so they want to rebuild, and they don't really care to acquire whatever odds and ends I have at the major league level. So it's almost impossible to trade when you have a barren farm system. So I always like to keep it stocked up a little bit to keep my options open so I can make trades like this one, where I traded William Miller. He is my only good prospect, and he is now gone. But fortunately, I had the other prospect who can, so I now have, at least one other bullet in the hopper in case I want to make another trade, or if I just want to have a guy who's eventually going to, come in and contribute at the major league level for cheap. And since we splurged on our $6 million advanced scouts, not by my own will, let's see what they have to say about him. So, they actually don't think he's going to improve that much. They're really bearish on the splits. Now, the thing about the cheap scouts is that they have lumpy projections, which is that they will be unequally distributed. Like, he's not going to add 26 points to control, he's going to add more than 2 points to his first righty. But we can see that they don't really think he's going to get that much better. Normally, they are too optimistic. They err on the side of optimism, which means that he might not have as much room to grow as we would hope for the 11th pick in the draft next year. So it makes me a little more comfortable trading him, knowing that he won't end up getting like 80-90 splits and being a stone cold stud. I don't even know if his first rating will hit 80 with that pessimism, but he'll still be pretty good. It's just that you have to be a little bit leery of how much he'll grow. And the other guy gave up. Yeah, who fucking cares? Eat a dick, Paul Kyung. And the centerpiece that I acquired, he has 99 durability and good stamina too, and pretty good stats. And what does that result in? 180 innings of really good pitching, where below 300 OBP, 356 slugging against, that's really good. He did this in a neutral ballpark with an average defense. So even though Fenway won't be that friendly to him, hopefully my defense will be good enough such that his stats don't suffer that much. Either way, I definitely like having him around. He's a great addition to the roster. And he has 3 years left on his deal. Correctly, he doesn't have a mutual option because we don't want him to opt out in that 4th year. Incorrectly, he wasn't offered a 5th year because he's worth a lot more than $7 million or $6.5 million a year or whatever the average annual value is on the open market. He's going to be worth at least $10 million a year. So if he had been given a 5th year of the deal, he'd have a little bit more value. That was a mistake, but whatever. I'll take 3 years of the guy very happily. So I would have considered trading Miller for Sardegna straight up. I don't know if I would have done it right on the spot because you have to be protective of your few trade assets when you don't really have that much to work with. But what really made me comfortable was making the trade was getting Dwayne Parker in return. So you can see he's a good defensive second baseman with a pretty good pop in his bat. He has a 455 career slugging, a 778 OPS. That's considerably better than our incumbent second baseman, who's making more money, Tony Burgess, and that's even before translating his stats to Fenway, where he'll probably rate quite a bit. So this guy's a bit of an impact player. He's obviously not an MVP candidate or anything, but he's going to add some wins to my team. So I really like acquiring him. He has 4 years left in his deal, but correctly, the 4th year is a mutual option. So when he starts to decline too much, we can just always get out for $6 million. Maybe he'll even decline the $8 million on his own and ask for less money, like a total retard. But I think that he'll lose a little bit of value, but he's young enough such that he can withstand the $14 million training budget and still be a net positive for the salary. So I like getting him. And the cherry on top is John Felson. I have my other first baseman who I complained about, Yvonne Martin. This guy sort of looks like a splitting image, but there are a couple key differences that makes him acceptable. One, his glove is 10 points better, so he's going to be more tolerable to play at first base. Two, his stats, his hitting splits are pretty much the same thing, except these happen in a neutral ballpark, so he'll outclass Martin offensively at Fenway and definitely be an overall better player all around. And three is that he's an ARB1 guy, so he only wants 1.6 million. So I don't really care that much about him, but we can sprinkle him at first base, some at DH. Maybe he'll fit me in another trade. Maybe somebody will want him if they have somebody I have. Who knows? There's nothing wrong with bringing him on. So this is a deal I definitely like because just trading for a single major league quality player with Miller, I'm probably not going to do that much better than Sardinia to begin with. And getting a couple other guys to fill some of my mini holes really makes the deal worthwhile for me. And the other trade of the night, this is sort of my risky deal where I deal Angel Ortiz. Uh, I'm really miss his defense at third base where he does his decent pop in the lineup. I don't really care about the 70% stolen base percentage. We don't need somebody to steal 70% of the bases at Fenway. Park itself will generate enough runs. But I really didn't want to trade him because he's kind of a scarce commodity. Third base can be a really tough position to fill because people don't just give away their pre-arb third basemen who play above average defense that can hit their way out of a paper bag for free. Those guys are really hard to acquire. So it might cause a little bit of stress replacing him. But I'm pretty happy with what I got in return. I got one major league player and a prospect. This is the major league guy. He's really rangy. His glove leaves a little bit to be desired. I'm probably going to play him in center field anyway, though. I'll get over it. He's speedy, so he gets infield hits. His hitting ratings are okay. His overall production kind of sucks. I'm probably going to have to turn stolen bases down so he doesn't run too much at that percentage. But he's actually, once he's translated to Fenway, he's going to be definitely better than my incumbent Tony Burgess, and he's going to do it for $7 million cheaper. These are the type of guys you need to acquire if you have a hole to fill. See, this guy was just on the trading block, and I asked about him. The guy wanted a third baseman, so I asked for Artie Snyder and a prospect. You just got to find the guys who are just readily available for cheap instead of just throwing out $7.5 million a year contracts just to fill a hole for some guy who's barely acceptable. So I like getting Artie. I definitely want to load up on as many pre-arb guys as possible to fill out my roster, to leave room to pay up for the meat of the roster in free agency, and possibly another trade or two. And this is the guy that really makes the trade worthwhile, Delano Pretty. He's pretty good, pun intended. He was the 16th pick in the draft a couple years ago. It's one of those relievers that I love who can give me not 160 or 180 innings like those other two beasts that I have, but he can probably give me a solid 100, 120 innings. And it's still a second year, so hopefully he mirrors last season's development this year and gets a couple more points thereafter. So we're looking at maybe 80 plus control, splits in the mid 70s, and pretty good everything else. Even if he comes a little short of that, he'll still be really good. So I definitely like having him. And also, again, now I have two prospects that I can possibly use in a trade as opposed to just the one. So I'm definitely getting a bit more roster flexibility, and I'm getting players that I like. So we're moving in a positive direction. This is a successful day of trading, and I'll keep you guys posted as I make more moves, but that's all for now.